Welcome back to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, the show where we explore the real connection between mental health and overall well being. Today, I'm joined by someone who lives at that intersection of healing and high impact, Laura Nicholls, a writer, strategist, and former therapist who helps visionaries turn lived experiences into books and messaging that actually clarifies purpose and expand impact. Laura rebuilt her life as a single mother and survivor of domestic violence, translating the tools of therapy, listening, meaning making, and transformation into a body of work that bridges psychology, creativity, and communication. She's coached leaders from overthinking to owning their message, from scattered ideas to finished books. So, if you have ever wondered how to grow as a human and also as an entrepreneur without burning out or splintering your values, then sit tight. This conversation's for you. So, welcome to the show, Laura. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here with me today.
Oh, thank you, Sayan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. And I'm, way too excited to talk about this because it really strikes me how many of us think that trying to grow a business and grow ourselves at the same time, and honestly, that overlap can sometimes get messy because on the surface we talk a lot about self care and mindset, but I've also seen how easy it is for those practices to turn into something really sophisticated, right? For sophisticated avoidance in particular. It looks productive, it feels comforting, but it's not actually moving us forward. So I would love to start there, right? What's the difference, or how do you tell the difference between helpful mental health practices and sophisticated procrastination?
That's such a great question. I think that when we find ourselves in a place where become performative and we are just kind of going through the motions because we know, right, that's entrepreneurial speak, like grow your mind, grow your business. And so I think it's very easy to begin going through the motions um and not really being present in those practices and not seeing the impact everywhere else in our lives. And just very briefly, some of that impact might be finding yourself in a flow state of creativity in what you're doing and loving your business more and feeling more energized about it versus grinding and hustling and being in survival mode with it.
Hmm. And if a listeners, let's say his or her launch is in say a week, what's a 90-second reset that you would recommend to bring the nervous system down enough to make a clear decision?
Oh, that's another great question. I think so much of this conversation starts with self-limiting beliefs and the top of the brain. And I don't want to bore your listeners with brain science, but what we forget is that our nervous system is at the base of our brain, right? And we often start with the thoughts when really our nervous system isn't even available for that. And we cannot be in a place of creation. And we certainly, I'm kind of smiling because as a copywriter, I work and live in the launch world. So I know how many moving parts there are, how intense that can be. And it is really as simple as just soothing your nervous system with very um, simple things that don't, the first place to start are things that don't require you to put in a lot of effort.
Mhm.
That may be me listening to like repetitive kind of drumming or nature sound, sort of soothing music for 90 seconds. It may be going outside and noticing five things. Our eyes are a primary way that they bring in 80% of our like sensory information, and that's how we can regroup. So really simple practices like that I don't think get enough credit for how impactful they can be because they feel so simple.
Right, right. Indeed. They sound very trivial, like you mentioned. And when you said that, right, I realized how often we actually confuse um, motion with progress. I think a lot of us are doing things that feel like tending to ourselves, but what we are actually doing is avoiding the moment where we tell the truth about what we actually need. And that ties into something you work with every day, which is our stories. The ones we need, the ones we tell publicly and the ones we tell ourselves. Because in the content heavy world we live in, there's a fine line between, I would say, sharing to heal and sharing to cope.
Yeah.
So let us go with there. When does it, start to sort of cross into self exploitation?
That's yeah. I I think that we have to think about our motives. when we're sharing something. And there is certainly something to be said about healing through your own story and sharing that with other people, but I really feel that that has to be equally weighted with how that story is serving. What is the impact that it's going to bring to others? Um, we don't want to exploit others through our stories and trauma dump and use our audience for our therapy.
Right.
And so I think there is I not only think, I know there's a definite journey into how you understand your story in the context of how it serves others.
Wow, that's really powerful, Laura. What you sort of said, but if I have to phrase it or rephrase it, that you said share the meaning and not the trauma or the mess, right, from your personal life, and that really stayed with me. And there's this myth, Laura, that big leaps require white knuckle energy. So from your perspective, how does nervous system regulation influence creative, risk-taking, and decisive leadership?
Well, to address that first part of that statement with great leaps require white knuckle energy, I think it's completely the opposite. I think that we are our most creative, productive state when we are not white knuckling it. And that's kind of what I was referring to earlier by bringing our nervous system into when the way that our brain is stacked, if you will, when we bring our nervous system into regulation, um, and I mentioned a couple things, but maybe that's also like very like box breathing in for 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, holding that for 4, putting your hand on your heart, telling yourself something soothing and safe, whatever that might be. I'm abundant and safe is when I say. Um, I think that um, I'm trying to recall the last part of your question there.
Yeah. So from your perspective, how does the nervous system regulation sort of influence the I would say creative risk taking and decisive leadership?
Mm, we cannot be in a place of creativity when we are not regulated. Bottom line, our thinking brain simply is not online in the same amazing ways that it can be. We are not open to receiving the answers to what we are seeking when we're in that white knuckle, dysregulated nervous system place. We are often dwelling on the problem, and in dwelling on that problem or the concerns or the anxieties or the is it going to work, we are creating more of that energetically
Right.
when
Right.
it all aligns. When you start with those basics, you are now opening up your capacity to receive what it is you are creating. You're collapsing time, essentially. You're bringing it into your reality by becoming regulated, by becoming available and focusing on not so much the grinding and not so much the how, but the inspired action, the next step. And those things they just can't come to you when you're in that white knuckle energy, or they don't, they're much more hard won. And I don't find in my own experience and the people that I've worked with over the years that the things that show up in that energy, they're not as productive. They're not as impactful. They get viewed as problems when really they're opportunities. Um, yeah, it's a complete mindset shift.
Yeah, I love that. The idea that a sort of a regulated body isn't slowing you down, but it's actually sharpening your decisions, like you said. And I think so many of us grew up believing that clarity comes after the grind. But and not through nervous system alignment. But what you said just now, I think that would resonate with a lot of people listening to this right now. So. Laura, I want to talk about a little bit of the process. That so many people are sitting on years of notes, memories, or even half-written ideas, but they don't know how to turn that into inner noise into something more coherent and useful. So, what's a lightweight structure that you think helps someone extract a clear thesis from their story and turn it into a message-driven outline?
Well, I think the place to start with that is, let's see, I believe that a lot of times it's a sounding board. It's talking it through with someone else when it feels what I experience is that a lot of people have a hard time finding a way in when I do talk to a lot of people who are exactly what you just said. They have manuscripts, they have notes, they have thoughts, it's all swirling. And because it feels so big, They never find a way in, and it just sits and it sits and it gathers virtual dust, if you will. So and sometimes, having been a therapist in the past, of course, I'm biased. I think there are many other modalities aside from just talk therapy, quote unquote, but I do think there is something about sitting with somebody who is a safe sounding board and just talking it through and seeing what arises, someone who's trusted, um, and in some ways can be objective about it as well. They are not maybe perhaps part of that story, and they can sit outside, but also sit with you and join with you in that and help you understand what the pieces are. It's like teasing out the pieces of the story and then bringing them into a cohesive place. So that would be
Indeed.
one of the first ways to do that. And other people I have found are able to do that work for themselves. Can be a bit more rare. Sometimes having some kind of framework to sit down. Journaling is incredibly powerful. I know it gets over talked about, but I'm a huge believer of sitting down, not at a computer, but with pen and paper. There is something that happens when you sit down and your brain has to slowly write the words out, literally onto a piece of paper. It's like you're committing them to the universe, and the process of doing that and allowing your brain to do that. I just can't stress enough how much can unfold from that. And so that's something else I've encouraged people to do is like get away from your keyboard, sit down with a pen and paper, and just start. And really, that sounds like a very basic thing to say, but just start is often another and very important part of that process.
Wow. Yeah, I have experienced that. Like something changes in my way to see the problem, right? Or the problem statement that I'm trying to solve on my own. So it's like, from overthinking to actually owning the message, right? And I think that's the most difficult part where most of us get stuck at. But something about horses, Laura, that you talk about in your work. I'm just curious to know what have horses taught you about presence, boundaries, and leading with clarity in business and in life.
I love this question. Well, the interesting thing is that horses' brains by nature are so when we as humans are traumatized, our brains, certain things happen, they get organized a little bit different. Horses' brains are naturally that way because they're prey animals. So in our work and connecting with them and helping them come online and do some regulating and connecting with them brings so much up physically in our own bodies, emotionally, what we're feeling in the moment, what we're thinking about. And there's just something so impactful in that connection. I see a lot of incredible leadership work happen with keeping like teams coming and working with horses, where there are dynamics that are revealed within the team that just wouldn't be uncovered in the boardroom, if you will. But they are in the arena with the horses because horses are not mirrors. However, they are incredibly attuned and are able to show us things that we don't necessarily see or even know about ourselves. And yeah, there's so much that can come up in that work that just I've seen create not only with the kids I used to work with but with adults, with high functioning adults. That is so incredibly impactful in such a I don't want to say a short amount of time, but that is what caused me to initially fall in love with that work, was seeing people that I'd worked with in talk
Mm.
therapy for years and years have shifts within 45 minutes that that we hadn't gotten to yet. So yeah.
Wow, wow, it's a it's a powerful way to rethink how we create, lead, um, and protect our energy. And
Mhm.
Laura, lastly, I would love to ask if clear is kind is the rule in the arena. What's one sentence a founder can use this week to set a boundary and keep connection, whether with a client or with a collaborator or eh, you know anyone arbitrary in that context?
Did you start that with clear is kind? Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah. One way I would encourage somebody to set a boundary this week, I would I would really encourage anyone, especially this time of year, um, and actually in just the season of life that we're all in. I think it's, I don't want to talk about the woes of the world right now, but in the last 5 years, and our digital culture and everything so fast, really what comes up for me is time, is protecting your time and remembering something I always tell myself is that it all gets done one way or another. I think that's a part of our hustle culture right now that really I'm looking forward to going away because I don't think it's productive. And so I would really encourage anyone to just be. Um, I was just looking at a picture of my daughter on the beach, a very simple moment in time that I had to make time for, but it was probably one of the most valuable things I experienced last week. So I would look for those opportunities just to find the moment and to set boundaries around time.
Well, thank you so much, Laura, for sharing your personal experiences. That indeed, making time for ourselves is the biggest thing, perhaps that we can do for ourselves. And my biggest takeaway from today is, from all this conversation about energy and presence and regulating your own nervous system in a way, is that clarity doesn't come necessarily from pushing harder. It comes from,
Mm.
I think, regulating, listening to yourself, because oftentimes your body is the best um, uh, speaker, right? It tells you exactly when you need to slow down or what do you need to do, and then responding from a grounded place. So thank you so much, Laura, for that. And just before we wrap off, I would love to ask for everyone who's listening to this right now, what's the best way to connect with you?
I'm active over on LinkedIn. It's a great place to connect. And of course, I can always be contacted through my website.
Could you please share your website?
Sure, I'm sorry, it's lauranicholls.com. It's pretty easy to remember. I just wanted to tack one last thing on to what you just said when you talked about regulating and listening, I think. And I really want to encourage people that the next step in that is receiving. And I think we all need to be more open to receiving than our cultures encourage us to.
Wonderful, wonderful, Laura. Totally, I agree. I agree to that. There's a lot of, that message I found is very deep. Indeed, we should be more open to receiving. And yeah, maybe we could talk about somewhere in our next episodes. But Laura, thank you so much for bringing both depth and practicality. And dear listeners, I will definitely include the show notes, details in the show notes for you, so you can check them out anytime you want. And with that comes an end to today's episode with Laura. She reminded us that our inner lives aren't a detour from entrepreneurship. They're the engine. For everyone listening, I want you to pick one practice from today and run a 7-day experiment. Right? Notice what shifts, and your decisions, your energy, your message, and share your insights with someone you trust, or even better, write them down like Laura suggested. Write it down on a piece of paper with a pen, because clarity loves the page. This is Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, and I am Sayan. Until next time, take a deep breath before you step, and let that breath point you towards something that truly matters. Thank you.